Maxx Crosby to Dallas, inside the trade buzz that could reshape the Cowboys and the NFC. One of the league's most dominant pass rushers is once again at the center of trade speculation. And this time, the team most connected to him isn't just any franchise. It's Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, an organization with a long history of making bold, headline-grabbing moves when the price and timing align. Before this video is over, we'll break down exactly why this connection keeps resurfacing, what it would mean for Dallas's defense, and why the Raiders might not be so willing to let their best defender walk, even for a haul of draft capital. Here's what we're covering today. We're looking at the latest reporting linking Maxx Crosby to the Cowboys. We're breaking down his production and what makes him worth the risk. We're examining who else is in the mix for his services. And we're getting into what a move like this would actually mean for Dallas's chances in the NFC. Stick around, because the final piece of this puzzle, the one involving Jerry Jones's own legacy, might be the most important part of the entire story. Let's start with where things stand right now. According to recent reporting, Dallas remains connected to Maxx Crosby as a potential trade target if the Raiders ultimately decide to move on from him before the deadline. This isn't a brand new storyline. It's one that has quietly persisted for months, resurfacing again through Pro Football Network's Cooper Kleinberg, who recently named the Cowboys among the teams that could realistically pursue the star edge rusher. Chicago and Philadelphia are also mentioned as suitors, which tells you this isn't a fringe rumor. This is a name that multiple front offices are watching closely. Why does Dallas keep coming up in these conversations? Part of it is simple organizational history. Jerry Jones has shown, time and again, a willingness to make aggressive, splash style acquisitions when he believes a piece can push his roster over the top. That's not new information to anyone who has followed this franchise, but it does matter here, because Crosby represents exactly the kind of player Jones has historically been drawn to, a proven disruptive force who instantly changes the identity of a defense. Now let's talk about why Crosby is worth all this attention in the first place, because the production speaks for itself. Last season alone, he recorded 73 tackles, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, an interception, and 6 passes defended. That's not just a strong season, that's a complete one. It shows a player who impacts the game in more ways than just getting to the quarterback. Over his career, Crosby has racked up 439 tackles and 69.5 sacks across 110 games. At 28 years old, he's not just productive, he's doing it at a stage in his career where he should still be at or near his physical peak. Add in 5 Pro Bowl selections, and you start to understand why teams view him as a true cornerstone rather than a rental piece. This is the kind of player who doesn't just show up on a stat sheet. He sets a tone. He brings the kind of relentless high motor energy that can lift an entire front seven. And that's exactly why the idea of pairing him with Dallas's existing pieces has generated so much conversation among analysts. That brings us to the roster fit, because this is where the Crosby to Dallas idea starts to make a lot of sense on paper. The Cowboys already have a talented and versatile group up front, and as Kleinberg pointed out, adding Crosby alongside players like Kenny Clark, DaRon Bland, and rookie Caleb Downs would immediately elevate the entire unit. This isn't about replacing production, it's about stacking it. A defense that already has pieces capable of disrupting opposing offenses becomes significantly more dangerous with a true game-wrecking edge presence added to the mix. And that's important, because pass rush remains one of the most valuable and hardest to manufacture assets in today's NFL. You can build a strong secondary, you can develop a promising young defense, but elite sustained pressure off the edge is rare. Teams that have it tend to control games in a way others simply can't replicate. Dallas, after previous roster changes altered the shape of its defensive front, has been searching for exactly that kind of difference maker. Crosby represents about as clean an answer to that need as currently exists on the trade market. Of course, none of this happens in a vacuum, and that's where the complications start. This is where we need to talk about the competition and the cost, because Dallas isn't the only team paying attention here. Chicago and Philadelphia have both been mentioned as potential suitors, and that alone should tell you the appetite around the league for a player like Crosby extends well beyond one franchise's ambitions. When multiple contenders and rebuilding teams alike are circling the same name, that usually drives the asking price up rather than down. There's another wrinkle here too. Reports indicate the price tag remains high, following a previous near deal with another contending team. That's a meaningful detail. It suggests the Raiders have already had serious conversations about moving Crosby, and at some point came close to pulling the trigger, but ultimately didn't. That kind of history often means Las Vegas has a very specific valuation in mind, and they're not likely to move off it just because a new team enters the conversation. We'll come back to that idea in a moment because it directly connects to whether this rumor turns into an actual transaction. But first, let's talk about what the Raiders are weighing on their end, because this decision isn't just about what Dallas or any other team offers, it's about what Las Vegas gives up in return. Crosby isn't just a talented player, he's the identity of that Raiders defense. He's a homegrown star, a five-time Pro Bowler, and a locker room leader by most accounts. Moving a player like that isn't simply a football decision, it's an organizational one. The Raiders have to weigh the value of accumulating draft capital for a longer term rebuild against the reality of trading away one of the most productive and beloved players on their roster. That's not an easy call for any front office. And it's part of why, despite months of speculation, no deal has actually happened yet. Any trade would likely require significant compensation, almost certainly centered around draft picks, and that raises questions for Dallas as well. The Cowboys have to balance aggressive win now moves with the long term health of their roster and salary cap. Jerry Jones has never been shy about pushing chips to the middle of the table, but even he has to consider what a deal like this costs, both in draft equity and in future flexibility. Now let's zoom out to the bigger picture because this is where the story becomes about more than just one player. Dallas already features one of the most explosive offenses in the league, built around Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Javonte Williams, and George Pickens. That's a group capable of putting points on the board against almost anyone. The missing piece, at least according to many analysts, has been a defense capable of matching that offensive firepower. Adding a player of Crosby's caliber wouldn't just improve one position group, it could shift the entire trajectory of how this Cowboys team is viewed heading into the season. Kleinberg's own assessment captured that sentiment directly, suggesting a move for Crosby would immediately make Dallas one of the favorites in the NFC and could stand as one of Jerry Jones's final blockbuster moves as owner of the franchise. That's a significant statement, and it speaks to how much weight this rumor carries beyond just roster construction. There's also a broader NFL trend worth acknowledging here. As offenses continue to evolve and become more explosive across the league, the value of elite pass rushers has only grown. Teams are increasingly willing to pay a premium for players who can consistently disrupt opposing quarterbacks because in a league built around passing efficiency, few things matter more than affecting the pocket. Crosby fits squarely into that category, and it's part of why interest in him has remained so persistent across multiple franchises. As training camp approaches quickly for every team around the league, the window for a move like this begins to narrow. Rosters will start solidifying, and front offices will have to decide whether to hold firm or make a move before the regular season shapes everything that follows. For now, the connection between Crosby and Dallas remains speculative, but it's persistent, credible, and tied to real organizational needs on both sides. So here's the question worth sitting with. If you're Jerry Jones, how much draft capital is too much to give up for a proven disruptive force like Maxx Crosby, especially with an offense this talented already in place? That's a debate worth having because it gets at the heart of team building in today's NFL, balancing immediate impact against long term cost. We'll continue tracking this story as it develops because trade rumors like this one tend to move quickly once momentum builds. For now, all signs point to a situation worth watching closely as camp approaches.